I think the easiest place to see my own pride isn't in some big moral failure. It's when I'm stuck in the checkout line behind a cashier in training. The way my blood pressure spikes just proves how desperately I want to control everything around me.
It's so true. We think unmanageability is just about addictions or massive crises, but it's really about what happens in our hearts when the car breaks down, or we don't get the promotion we wanted. We either get angry, or we isolate, or we point the finger at somebody else's mess so we don't have to look at our own. Today, we're talking about what it means to stop pretending we have it all together and finally invite God to step in.
I mean, it really is just great to be sitting here with you, just looking around the Crosstalk Cafe right now.
It's a great spot.
Right. Smelling the coffee roasting, hearing the hum of people talking in the background. It just grounds me. There is something profoundly comforting about just being here, speaking directly to you, the listener, as a peer.
Absolutely. We're in it together.
Exactly. We are walking this exact same road of recovery alongside you. We are not, we aren't speaking from some pristine mountaintop of perfection, just handing down decrees. We are right down here in the valley.
Oh, completely in the valley.
Yeah, dealing with the exact same daily struggles, the exact same sudden spikes of anxiety, and the exact same desperate need for grace.
And I think that's the whole point of this gathering, this cafe setting, the sounds of fellowship, the clinking of mugs. It reminds me that recovery doesn't happen in a sterile laboratory.
Right. No white coats here.
Yeah, no white coats. It doesn't happen in isolation. It happens in community, in the real world, right in the middle of our incredibly messy, unpredictable lives. We aren't here to offer abstract philosophical theories.
Nobody needs more theories.
No, they don't. We're here to talk about the gritty reality of living out these principles, sometimes hour by hour or, man, even minute by minute when things get really tough.
And that context is absolutely crucial right now because we just recently wrapped up our long series of conversations on the Serenity Robbers.
That was a heavy series.
It really was. We spent a lot of time identifying those specific thieves that sneak in and steal our peace. The resentments we hold on to, the anxieties that keep us awake at night, the fears of the future. But concluding that series brings us to a major transition point. It brings us face to face with the grinding, unavoidable reality of Principle 1.
Right. Principle 1. The admission of our own powerlessness and the reality that our lives have become unmanageable. And let's be honest, that is a terrifying concept for almost everyone.
Well, let me stop you there for a second, actually, because I want to make sure we are all on the exact same page before we go any further. When we say Principle 1, someone listening might be thinking, okay, that's step 1 of a 12-step thing. That's for people with severe life-threatening substance abuse issues.
Yeah, that's the common misconception.
Right. So how do we define Principle 1 for the person who is just, driving to their corporate job on a Tuesday, or the stay-at-home parent wrangling toddlers? Explain it to me like I'm 5 years old. What does unmanageability actually mean in plain English?
That is the perfect question to start with. If I were explaining it to a 5-year-old, I would say, Principle 1 means realizing that you are not the boss of the universe, and trying to be the boss is only going to break your heart.
Wow. Yeah.
In plain adult English, unmanageability means that our internal life, our emotions, our reactions, our peace of mind, is completely dictated by our external circumstances.
So we're just reacting to whatever happens.
Exactly. If the circumstances are good, we are happy. If the circumstances are bad, we completely fall apart. It means we have lost the ability to navigate life with a steady hand because we are relying solely on our own willpower to force the world to behave the way we want it to. And willpower is, it's a finite resource.
So it's not just the cinematic, dramatic definition of losing control.
Not at all. We have this culturally ingrained idea that powerlessness is only an event that makes the evening news. We picture someone losing absolutely everything, sleeping on the streets, or having a massive public breakdown.
Right, hitting rock bottom in a very visible way.
Yeah. And while that extreme form of unmanageability is certainly a reality for many people, and we absolutely honor the profound difficulty of that journey, it is not the only face of unmanageability. The kind of unmanageability that affects 99% of us is much quieter, much more subtle, and in some ways, much more insidious because it is socially acceptable.
Socially acceptable unmanageability. Man, that hits hard. And that is exactly what we are focusing on today. We want to look squarely in the mirror of daily life.
Yeah, the everyday stuff.
We want to recognize the hidden, deeply subtle manifestations of pride that creep into our normal routines. We want to learn how to reframe our loss of control as an actual invitation for God's grace. Because unmanageability isn't just about the massive wreckage, it is found in the incredibly mundane frustrations of a regular Tuesday afternoon.
Well, the routine of our daily lives is a constant, unyielding reminder of our lack of control. It is almost as if the universe is designed to show us repeatedly that we are not the directors of the play.
We really want to be, though.
Oh, we desperately want to be. We are just participating in it. We are actors on the stage, but we keep trying to grab the megaphone from the director. And the ways this shows up are so seemingly trivial that we often miss the profound spiritual lesson they are trying to teach us.
Okay, let's get really specific then. Let's talk about those micro triggers, because this is where the rubber meets the road. I mentioned it right at the beginning, the grocery store checkout line.
The ultimate testing ground.
It really is. Let's examine the psychology of this moment, because it is so universal. You are at the store, you just want to get home, you have your items in the cart. What happens next in the mind of someone who is trying to manage the unmanageable?
Well, the management starts before you even reach the registers. You are walking down the main aisle, and your brain goes into full tactical mode.
Oh, yeah. Threat assessment?
Exactly. You are scanning the lines. You are doing quick mental math. You look at lane 3. There's an elderly person writing a paper check. You eliminate lane 3.
Done. Next.
You look at lane 5. Someone has a cart completely overflowing with canned goods. You eliminate lane 5. You look at lane 4. 2 people holding baskets, minimal items. You make your move. You position your cart.
You feel like a genius.
Right. You have strategized. You have exerted your control over the grocery store environment. You feel a tiny hit of dopamine because you are winning the grocery store game.
Exactly. I am the Navy SEAL of the local supermarket. I've optimized my exit strategy.
Right. But then reality strikes. Person in front of you in lane 4 steps up to the scanner, and they pull out a piece of obscure produce.
Oh, no, not the obscure produce.
Strange melon. A root vegetable with no sticker. The cashier, who happens to be wearing a trainee badge, tries to scan it. Nothing. They flip it over. Nothing.
The panic sets in.
They start looking at the laminated sheet of codes. Then they look around frantically for a manager. And then it happens. The flashing light goes on above
The flashing light, the universal beacon of defeat.
It is the blinking neon sign that your control has just evaporated.
Okay, let's pause and look at what happens inside the body in that exact second. Because it is not just a mild logical disappointment. I know for me, it is a visceral, physical reaction.
Oh, your body keeps score.
It does. My heart rate actually increases. My foot starts tapping. The sighs become audible. And let's be honest, the sigh is a performance.
It's totally a performance.
I am sighing loudly so that people behind me know that I am a victim of this inefficiency. I am communicating like I am a busy, important person, and this is an outrage. I check my watch, my blood pressure physically spikes, I start getting genuinely hot under the collar. Over what? What is the actual objective loss here?
3 extra minutes. Maybe 5.
5 minutes. Literally the time it takes to listen to 1.5 songs on the radio. And yet I am ready to burn the store down.
It is entirely disproportionate to the actual event. And that disproportionate reaction is the blinking warning light on our own spiritual dashboard. We have to ask ourselves, why does a minor delay at the grocery store feel like a personal attack? Because that is how it feels, doesn't it? It feels like the cashier and the person with the weird melon have conspired to ruin your life.
It really does. I take it completely personally.
It feels that way because it shatters the carefully constructed illusion that we are the absolute masters of our own universe. When that cashier struggles, a mirror is being held up to our own helplessness.
Yeah, we can't do anything about it.
We cannot make the manager walk over any faster. We cannot make the barcode scan. We cannot magically learn the code for a star fruit. We are entirely 100% at the mercy of circumstances outside our control. And our pride absolutely hates that feeling of vulnerability. Our pride relies on the idea that if we are smart enough and strategic enough, we can insulate ourselves from friction.
That is a fascinating way to put it. We use strategy to insulate ourselves from friction. And when the friction happens anyway, it's not just a delay. It is the death of our sovereignty, played out right there next to the chewing gum and the tabloids. We realize we are not the king of the world.
It's humbling if we actually let it be.
True. But I want to push back on this a little bit. Let me play devil's advocate here. I totally agree that losing my mind in a grocery store line over 5 minutes is petty, and it's a clear sign of my own ego. But let's look at another example of daily unmanageability, the car breaking down.
Okay, let's look at that.
Let's say I have a massive presentation at work. I have been preparing for weeks. If I don't nail this presentation, I might not get the bonus I need to pay for my kids' braces. I get in my car, I turn the key, and hollow click, dead battery. Or worse, I'm driving on the highway, steam starts pouring out from under the hood, and I have to pull over.
A nightmare scenario.
Right. Now, if I get furious in that moment, if I punch the steering wheel and scream, how is that pride? That isn't me trying to be God. That is me facing a very real, very tangible crisis that threatens my livelihood. Isn't that just a normal, justified human reaction to a terrible situation?
That is a phenomenal question, and it gets right to the heart of what unmanageability really is. First of all, the fear you feel in that moment is completely valid. The stress of missing a presentation, the financial worry about paying for braces, the danger of sitting on the side of a highway, those are legitimate, real-world problems.
Right, they aren't made up.
No, not at all. God does not ask us to pretend that broken cars are fun. He doesn't ask us to be robots without emotions. But here is where the pride and the unmanageability sneak in. It's the difference between managing the logistics and internalizing the chaos.
Break that down for me. Logistics versus chaos.
Well, managing the logistics looks like this. The car breaks down. You feel a surge of adrenaline. You take a deep breath. You assess the situation. You call a tow truck. You call your boss and honestly explain the situation. You accept the reality that you're going to be late, and you deal with the consequences as they come. You are feeling the stress, but you are still functioning within reality.
Okay, that makes sense. You handle the problem.
Right. Internalizing the chaos, which is driven by pride, looks completely different. It looks like punching the steering wheel until your knuckles bleed. It looks like screaming at the universe, why is this happening to me?
Making it personal again.
Exactly. It looks like deciding in that one moment that your entire life is ruined, that you're a failure, that God has abandoned you, and that the tow truck driver who eventually shows up is your sworn enemy.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah, I see the difference.
The pride lies in the phrase, this shouldn't be happening to me. Why shouldn't it? Cars break down, belts snap. Alternators fail. They are mechanical objects built by human hands. They are subject to decay. But our pride tells us that because we planned our day perfectly, the mechanical laws of the universe should suspend themselves for our convenience. We take a mechanical failure and we internalize it as a fundamental injustice against our perceived perfection.
So we tie our identity to our productivity.
Exactly. We believe our worth is based on our ability to show up, deliver the presentation, and earn the bonus. When the car breaks down, it strips away our ability to produce. 1 second, you are a highly respected, productive member of society, completely in charge of your destiny.
And the next second?
The next second, you are sitting on the shoulder of the highway, gripping a useless piece of plastic, smelling burning coolant, watching thousands of other cars fly past you. You are suddenly incredibly vulnerable. You have to admit you need help. You have to rely on a mechanic. You have to admit to your boss that you couldn't make it happen. Every single piece of your meticulously planned armor is gone.
And the internal monologue in that moment is almost never, well, mechanical entropy is a reality of life.
Never.
It is a raging storm of self-pity. We feel humiliated by our own powerlessness. We feel betrayed by our tools. And because we are so desperate to avoid that feeling of powerlessness, we replace it with anger. Anger feels proactive. Anger feels like power, even if we are just yelling at a dashboard.
It is a defense mechanism. We tie our sense of safety to our ability to predict the future. We say, I will drive from point A to point B, I will give the speech, I will get the check. When the future suddenly changes without our permission, our safety feels violently violated. And the human brain, when it feels its safety violated, goes into full fight or flight mode. We fight the reality of the broken car.
And if the broken car is hard, let's talk about the next level of this. Because a broken car is a problem of logistics and money. But what about the powerlessness of our own bodies? What about waiting over an agonizing weekend to learn the results of a medical test?
Oh, that is an entirely different universe of powerlessness that strips away every illusion we have ever built.
It really is the ultimate stripping away. Let's walk through that experience because so many people listening right now know this exact feeling. You go to the clinic on a Friday morning. You sit in the waiting room with the bad magazines and the flickering fluorescent lights. They run the tests. And the doctor looks at you and says, well, the lab is a little backed up. We won't have the results until Monday afternoon.
The longest weekend of your life.
Right. You walk out of the clinic into the sunlight. The world looks exactly the same. The birds are still singing. People are still driving to the grocery store. But your entire reality has shifted on its axis.
Because for the next 72 hours, you are thrust into a holding pattern of pure, unadulterated powerlessness. Think about all the things you normally do to fix a problem. You can't work overtime to get a better test result. You can't negotiate with the laboratory technicians.
No amount of money changes it.
Right. You can't use your charm or your wealth or your intellect to alter whatever that piece of paper is going to say.
Yeah.
You are completely stripped of your usual tools.
You are just forced to wait. And what happens to the mind in that waiting period is terrifying.
Neurologically, the brain hates uncertainty, even more than it hates guaranteed bad news. Studies have actually shown this. If you tell someone they're definitely going to get a small electric shock in 10 seconds, their stress spikes, but then it levels out. If you tell them they might get a shock sometime in the next 10 minutes, their stress levels go off the charts and stay there.
Because the brain is a prediction machine. It wants to know what's coming so it can prepare.
Exactly. And when it can't predict the outcome of that medical test, it starts generating every possible worst-case scenario. That is the anxiety we feel. It's waking up at 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, mentally planning your own funeral.
I've been there. It's awful.
It's sitting at the dinner table with your family, physically present, but entirely absent mentally because you're running through a labyrinth of fear in your own head. That profound, vibrating anxiety reveals how incredibly fragile our sense of security truly is when we rely solely on our own strength.
It exposes the massive lie that we are actually the ones keeping ourselves safe. We realize in the dead silence of a Saturday night while waiting for those results that our health, our breath, the beating of our heart, it is all held in hands much larger than our own. We realize we are not the authors of our own physical existence. And if we haven't surrendered our lives to God, if we haven't built a foundation of trust in His sovereignty, that realization is absolutely terrifying. It feels like stepping off a cliff in the dark.
It is a forced confrontation with our own mortality and fragility, and our pride fights that confrontation tooth and nail. We want to believe we are invincible.
But the reality is we are fragile, and our egos are fragile too. Which brings me to another daily trigger that really exposes our pride. It's not a physical threat like a medical test, but a threat to our identity. Watching coworkers get promoted while continuing to wait for recognition.
Oh, that one stings.
Let's explore this one, because this trigger is rooted in our sense of fairness and our deep desire to control how other people perceive us.
This is a classic breeding ground for resentment. Let's say you have been at the company for 5 years. You put in the extra hours. You take on the projects nobody else wants. You follow the rules. You have internalized a very specific contractual view of the world. If I do A, B, and C, the universe owes me D. My hard work equals my advancement. It is a formula. And formulas make us feel in control.
It's the meritocracy myth. We believe that if we just pull the right levers, the machine will dispense the reward.
But then the company-wide email goes out on Tuesday morning. There is an announcement. And it's not your name on the promotion. It is the name of the person in the cubicle next to you. Someone who, in your estimation, doesn't work as hard, leaves early, and takes too much credit.
Oh, the acid that instantly starts burning in your stomach when you read that email. You have to go to the staff meeting. You have to look them in the eye. You smile. You force the words out. Oh, congratulations. So happy for you. But inside, there's a nuclear reactor of resentment melting down.
Because you have been forced into an awareness of your powerlessness. You feel overlooked. You feel invisible. You start questioning your own worth. And the core issue is that you cannot force leadership to see your value. You can write the best reports in the world, but you cannot force another human being to appreciate them.
That's a hard pill to swallow.
You cannot compel your boss to reward you. You are subjected to the subjective, often flawed opinions of other human beings. And that lack of control over how you are judged drives our pride absolutely crazy.
We want to be the author of our own reputation. But we aren't. Other people get to decide what they think of us. And so what do? We don't just sit with the sadness of being passed over. We go on the offensive.
Yes, we do.
We start tearing the other person down. We go to lunch with a different coworker and we say, can you believe they got the job? Did you hear how they messed up that account last month? We use gossip as a tool to try and regain a sense of superiority. If I can't be elevated by a promotion, I will elevate myself by standing on the wreckage of my coworker's reputation.
It is a dark, destructive coping mechanism. And it proves the point. All these situations, the slow grocery line, the broken car, the pending medical test, the lost promotion, they are all daily, recurring invitations to acknowledge our lack of control. They are opportunities to say, I am not God, and that is okay. But because our pride is so incredibly strong, we rarely accept the invitation gracefully. Instead, we fight back.
Which leads me to a really critical question. I want us to wrestle with this, and I want the listener to really think about this dynamic in their own life. Why is it that human beings can often handle a major catastrophic crisis with stoic resolve, but a broken fan belt on a Tuesday morning completely unravels our sanity?
That's the million-dollar question right there.
Right. Think about the psychology of that. Sometimes when a true tragedy strikes, a death in the family, a massive natural disaster, we go into this hyper-focused, incredibly capable mode. We organize the meal trains, we make the agonizing phone calls to relatives, we stand strong at the funeral, we manage the insurance claims. People look at us and say, "You are so strong." We handle the macro-level unmanageability with a surprising amount of grace.
It's true. We step up.
But then, 2 weeks later, the Wi-Fi router stops working, or we drop a jar of spaghetti sauce on the kitchen floor and we completely lose our minds. We collapse into a puddle of rage and tears. Why is there such a massive disconnect in how we handle different scales of unmanageability?
That is a profound paradox of human nature. I believe the answer lies in how our ego engages with the event. When a massive, undeniable crisis hits, a sudden death, a hurricane, a terminal diagnosis, the reality of our powerlessness is so absolute, so overwhelming, that our ego momentarily short-circuits and surrenders.
Like it just gives up.
Yeah. The wave of the disaster is so massive that the brain instantly calculates, I cannot swim against this. So we stop fighting the reality of it, and we shift entirely into survival mode. We instinctively know, in the face of a hurricane, that we need community. We instinctively know we need God. The pride is temporarily crushed by the sheer weight of the tragedy.
It's like the ego realizes it's outmatched, so it steps aside.
Exactly. But a broken fan belt, a slow Wi-Fi connection, a dropped jar of sauce, our ego looks at those minor annoyances and says, wait a minute, I should be able to manage this. This is a small thing. This is beneath me. I should be smart enough, rich enough, or organized enough to avoid dropping the sauce. I should have checked the router. I should have maintained the car.
Oh, man.
The minor inconveniences are interpreted as an insult to our perceived competence.
Oh, that is brilliant. The major crisis humbles us immediately, but the minor inconvenience insults our pride. It offends our belief that we have our lives perfectly curated.
Yes. And because our pride is insulted, we react with indignation. We feel like we have failed a test we should have passed easily. So these everyday triggers don't just cause a momentary spike in blood pressure. They kick off a massive, complex chain reaction of flawed coping mechanisms. We don't just feel the frustration of the dropped spaghetti sauce. We actively try to suppress that feeling of failure through deeply dysfunctional behaviors.
And that is exactly what we need to explore next, the illusion of management. Because when we are faced with our lack of control, even in the small things, we don't just sit there peacefully and accept it. We attempt to artificially reestablish control through completely dysfunctional means.
We reach for the nearest tool.
Right. Let's go through the specific coping mechanisms that we often talk about. First one, and perhaps the one that plagues modern society the most, is worry. We worry obsessively about the details. Let's examine the anatomy of worry. Because worry is incredibly deceptive. Worry feels like work.
It is the most deceptive of all the coping mechanisms because it mimics productivity. If I sit on my living room couch and I worry about that pending medical test for 6 straight hours, if I search every possible symptom on the internet, if I read medical journals I don't understand, if I play out the conversation with the doctor in my head 50 times, my brain releases chemicals that tell me I'm actively doing something about the problem.
It feels like you're guarding the perimeter of your life.
Exactly. The brain says, I'm examining the threat from every angle. I'm preparing for the worst so I won't be surprised. I'm being responsible. But what is the actual reality? Has that 6 hours of intense, agonizing worry changed a single cell in your body? Has it altered the lab results sitting in a centrifuge across town? Has it fixed the broken fan belt? Has it made the cashier scan the strange melon any faster?
Not a chance. Not a single thing has changed in the physical world.
The only thing that has changed is that you are now metabolically exhausted. You have burned through your adrenaline, spiked your cortisol levels, ruined your digestion, and robbed yourself of an afternoon of peace. Worry is simply the illusion of control manufactured by anxiety. It is burning premium emotional fuel just to keep the engine of pride running while the car goes nowhere. It is a refusal to accept that the outcome is out of your hands.
I love how you describe it as an illusion of control. And it is exhausting, which naturally leads to the next coping mechanism, because the human body cannot sustain a state of high alert worry forever. Eventually, the central nervous system crashes, and when it crashes, we often swing to the complete opposite extreme. We move from obsessive worry to feigned apathy. We pretend that it simply doesn't matter.
The whatever defense,
Yeah.
the shield of detachment.
Yeah. I didn't really want that promotion anyway. It just means more paperwork. If the car's broken, who cares? It's a piece of junk. I'll just ride the bus. If the medical test is bad, well, we all have to go sometime, right? Let's talk about why we do this. Because it's a very common defense, especially for people who pride themselves on being tough or stoic. Why do we suddenly pretend we don't care about things we were agonizing over yesterday?
We build a protective shell. It is a psychological negotiation. Our pride realizes that it cannot control the outcome. It cannot guarantee the promotion or the good health. And failing to get what we want is going to hurt. It is going to cause pain.
So we try to beat the pain to the punch.
Yeah. The ego steps in and says, if I convince myself that I do not care about the outcome, then the fact that I cannot control the outcome won't hurt as much. You can't break my heart if my heart isn't invested. It is an attempt to pre-numb the pain of powerlessness.
It's a preemptive strike against disappointment.
Precisely. But the tragedy is, it is a lie. We do care. The person who didn't get the promotion cares deeply. They feel rejected and unvalued. The person waiting for the medical test cares desperately about living a long, healthy life. But our pride would rather construct a cold, lonely fortress of apathy than stand in the open and admit that our hearts are breaking because we are powerless. True stoicism is accepting what you cannot control. False apathy is pretending you don't care that you can't control it.
That is a crucial distinction. And what happens when the apathy doesn't hold? Because eventually the protective shell cracks, the disappointment seeps in, and when we can no longer maintain the illusion of worry and we can no longer pretend we don't care, we hit the final, most explosive line of defense. Anger. We become violently angry and resentful.
This is where the internal chaos spills out and starts burning down the relationships around us. We lash out, the tow truck driver finally arrives, and instead of being grateful, we chew him out because he took 45 minutes.
We take it out on the wrong people.
Always. We snap at our spouse the moment we walk through the door because we didn't get the promotion. We harbor a deep, burning resentment toward the coworker who did get promoted, actively looking for ways to sabotage them or undermine their success.
Why does powerlessness so often mutate into rage? What is the connection there?
Because anger gives us a temporary, intoxicating rush of adrenaline. And adrenaline mimics the feeling of power. When you are yelling, when you are dominating a conversation, when you're tearing someone else down, you feel big. You feel loud. For a fleeting moment, the roar of your own anger drowns out the quiet, terrifying whisper of your own helplessness.
It's a counterfeit power.
Completely counterfeit. And it is incredibly toxic energy. It poisons the well of every relationship you have. But perhaps the most damaging long-term consequence of all these flawed coping mechanisms, the worry, the apathy, the anger, is what we do with the shame that follows.
Oh, the shame is so heavy.
It is. We don't want people to see us out of control. We don't want them to see our frantic worry, our fake apathy, or our ugly anger. So what do? We isolate. We withdraw to keep the pain and frustration at a safe, hidden distance.
Let's really drill down into isolation, because we often say that isolation is the silent killer in recovery. And I want to explore what that actually looks like in practice, because it's rarely a dramatic, sweeping exit. It isn't packing a bag and moving to a cabin in the woods. It is usually a very quiet, very domestic retreat.
Yes, the micro-isolations. It looks like walking through the front door after that terrible day at work, the day you didn't get the promotion. Your spouse and kids are in the living room. You walk straight past them, mumble a greeting, go into the master bedroom, and shut the door. You stay in there for 3 hours scrolling on your phone.
Just totally checked out.
Completely. It looks like the heavy, suffocating atmosphere of the silent treatment. You are sitting at the dinner table. Someone asks, "How was your day?" And you just look down at your plate and say, "Fine." But the tone you use clearly indicates that nothing is fine. The air is thick with tension. You are physically present, but you have emotionally evacuated the building. You refuse to let them in.
The silent treatment is so manipulative. It forces everyone around you to walk on eggshells, trying to guess what they did wrong, when in reality, they didn't do anything wrong. You are just punishing them for the fact that the universe didn't obey you today. We push away the very community, the very family that is designed by God to help us carry the burden. Why do we do that?
We tell ourselves noble lies about our isolation. We think, I'm just in a bad mood. I'm protecting them from my negativity. Or we think they won't understand. If I tell them how upset I am about the promotion, they will think I'm petty. I am protecting myself from their judgment.
So make it sound like we're doing them a favor.
Right. But all we are really doing is locking ourselves in a solitary confinement cell built entirely out of our own pride. We sit in that dark room, stewing in our powerlessness, utterly and completely alone. We cut ourselves off from the grace that flows through other people.
And here is the truly insidious part of that dynamic. The tragedy of that isolation is that the desire for control cannot be contained. Trying to control our circumstances inevitably bleeds into trying to control the people around us. When we feel completely out of control in one area of our lives, say the workplace or our physical health, we come home and we start aggressively micromanaging our families to compensate.
This is a classic behavioral displacement.
Explain how that displacement works in a typical household.
Let's use the workplace example again. The boss criticized your project today. You felt small, incompetent, and powerless. You drive home in silence, gripping the steering wheel. You walk through the door. You cannot control your boss. You cannot control the company structure.
But you can control a house.
Right. You look around the living room and you see that your kids left their shoes by the door.
Right.
And certainly, you decide that these shoes are the most critical issue in the world. You hyper-criticize how the shoes are placed. You march into the kitchen and start dictating exactly how the dishwasher needs to be loaded, lecturing your spouse about the proper angle of the plates. You become obsessed with dictating exactly what time the lights need to be out.
You become a tyrant.
You become a household tyrant. You're bleeding out from powerlessness in the external world. So you try to staunch the bleeding by exerting absolute dominance over your internal world. You force external order-clean floors, silent kids, properly loaded dishwashers to try and fix an internal spiritual chaos. And it never works. It just creates an atmosphere of absolute misery for everyone who loves you.
Because you are treating your family like props in a play that you are desperately trying to direct, instead of human beings you're supposed to be loving. This whole cycle, the worry, the apathy, the anger, the isolation, the micromanagement, it brings a very specific visual to mind. I want to share this because I think it perfectly captures the absolute futility of our illusion of control.
I'd love to hear it.
Imagine a mechanic's garage. Inside the garage, there is a car suspended on a massive hydraulic lift. The car is 6 feet in the air. The tires are hovering in empty space. They aren't even touching the pavement. But imagine the driver is still sitting behind the wheel.
Oh, this is good.
They are completely delusionally convinced they are driving on the highway. They are gripping the steering wheel so hard their knuckles are white. They are slamming their foot on the gas pedal. The engine is screaming, revving up to 6,000 RPMs. The speedometer is pegged at 100 miles an hour. The driver is sweating profusely. They are honking the horn at imaginary traffic. They are shouting out the window, completely consumed by the massive effort of driving.
Just burning out the engine.
Exactly. They are burning out the engine. They are wasting expensive fuel. They are destroying the transmission with their frantic, unyielding anxiety. But they are entirely blind to the objective reality. They are suspended in midair. They aren't moving a single inch. They have absolutely zero traction.
That is a hauntingly accurate image. That is exactly what a life driven by the illusion of control looks like. We are generating so much noise, so much smoke, so much heat. We are completely destroying our own internal engines, burning out our adrenal glands, destroying our relationships.
Visiting nowhere.
Nowhere at all. And all the while, God is just standing in the garage, looking at us with compassion, waiting for us to stop, waiting for us to turn off the ignition, waiting for us to release our death grip on the wheel, step out of the car, and admit that the tires aren't touching the ground.
We have zero traction.
Zero traction. But our pride is so stubborn that we would literally rather burn out the engine, have a heart attack, or blow up our marriage than admit we need a tow truck. We refuse to admit our powerlessness. And what's worse, when all these coping mechanisms fail to bring us peace, when the frantic revving of the engine doesn't magically put the car on the road, our pride doesn't surrender. It doesn't give up. It looks for a different, darker escape route.
It looks for a distraction. If I cannot fix my own messy, unmanageable life, I am going to find a way to ignore it. And the most convenient, self-satisfying distraction available to the human ego is finding someone else whose life looks even more unmanageable than mine. If I cannot fix my own mess, I am going to focus all my energy on judging yours.
Which brings us to a really uncomfortable topic. The pride of comparison. We see this everywhere. It is the fuel of modern society. We all participate in it, whether we want to admit it or not. We use the daily news, the endless scroll of tragedies, crimes, and moral failures on our phones to build a platform for our own self-righteousness. We use the failures of others as scaffolding to prop up our own crumbling self-esteem.
And there's a very specific, deeply distressing story that illustrates this. It is the kind of story that immediately grabs your attention, turns your stomach, and demands a reaction. It's a news story about a man who left his 3-year-old son locked in a car in 35-degree weather because he was inside visiting a strip club.
It is an objectively horrifying scenario. There is no defending it. A helpless child placed in physical danger, freezing temperatures, while a father is completely consumed by a destructive, illicit desire. It is a profound failure of responsibility and morality.
It really is. And when a story like that flashes across our television screens or pops up on our social media feed, what is our immediate reflexive reaction?
It is an intoxicating rush of righteous outrage. It happens instantly. We sit on our couches, we point at the screen, and we declare our verdict. We look at that father and ask, how could anyone do that? What kind of absolute monster behaves that way? Why doesn't this guy get help for his struggle with sexual addiction? Lock him up and throw away the key.
Right. We draw a massive, thick line in the sand. We put him way over there in the category of unmanageable disaster and bad person. And by default, we place ourselves over here in the category of decent, manageable, moral citizens.
And we have to be honest about what that outrage does for us internally. That outrage gives us a massive dopamine hit. It physically feels good to be the judge. It feels powerful to sit on the bench and condemn the visible, public, messy failures of others. It gives us a temporary elevation above the muck and mire of human brokenness. We feel clean by comparison.
But the tragedy of this outrage, the real danger of it, is what it is designed to hide.
Yes, the hidden struggle. We have to pivot to the sharp, painful contrast here.
Yeah.
Because this is where the mirror is held up to our own faces. While we are sitting on the couch, completely outraged at the father at the strip club, feeling morally superior, what are we doing? We are simultaneously attempting to escape our own pain through a repeated private cycle.
Like the cycle of overeating and dieting.
Exactly.
Now, wait a minute. Let me pause and speak for the listener who might be getting defensive right now, because I feel it too. If someone says, wait a minute, leaving a child in a freezing car is a crime. It is child endangerment. Eating a sleeve of cookies on my couch while watching TV is not a crime. It only hurts me. Are you really saying those two things are the same? Because that feels like a massive stretch. How do we answer that? Because the degrees of harm in the physical world are obviously very different.
You are absolutely right, and we must acknowledge that. In the physical, legal, and social realms, those two actions are vastly different. Endangering a child is a severe crime with victims. Overeating in your living room is a private struggle. We're not equating the consequences of the actions.
Okay, that's an important distinction.
But, and this is the crucial part for recovery, we must look at the spiritual and psychological mechanism driving the behavior. Why is the father in the strip club? He is running from some deep, unmanageable pain, stress, or emptiness in his life. He is using a destructive behavior, sexual addiction, to numb that pain, and it is resulting in the neglect of his responsibilities.
He's trying to escape.
Right. Now, why are we standing in the pantry at midnight, eating food we aren't hungry for? We are running from our own deep, unmanageable pain. We eat to push down the anxiety of the pending medical test. We eat to swallow the bitter resentment of the past overpromotion. We eat to fill the void of the isolation we created when we gave our spouse the silent treatment. We are using a substance food to numb our pain, resulting in the neglect of our own physical, emotional, and spiritual health.
So the root is the same.
The mechanism of escaping reality through a numbing agent is exactly the same. The powerlessness is exactly the same.
We are judging the man for seeking an escape in a club, while we are seeking an escape in the pantry. It's the exact same dynamic of a human being saying, I cannot handle my reality, so I will medicate it. And the cycle is so familiar. We binge to numb the pain. Then we wake up the next morning full of intense shame. We look in the mirror, we declare a strict new diet, we rely entirely on our own willpower to fix it. We manage to hold it together for 3 days. Then the stress hits again, the willpower breaks, we fail, and the cycle repeats. It is the textbook definition of unmanageability.
Yet our pride creates a hierarchy of sin to protect us. Our pride looks at the news and says, well, I am just struggling with food. That isn't hurting anyone else. That isn't illegal. My mugshot isn't on the evening news.
We use the social acceptability of our struggle to mask the spiritual reality of our rebellion.
Exactly. We use the fact that society tolerates overeating or workaholism or chronic worry to convince ourselves that we don't have a real problem. But like the father visiting the strip club, we are stuck in a cycle. And like that father, we refuse to admit our struggle or reach out for help.
Which demands a really hard, uncomfortable question. I have to ask myself this, and I challenge everyone listening to ask themselves right now, in the quiet of their own mind, how often do we use our outrage at someone else's moral failure as a shield to deflect attention from our own secret shame?
That is the core issue of comparison. It is a brilliant, devastating defense mechanism. Think of it like stage lighting. If I can take a massive, glaring spotlight and shine it directly on the failures of the politician on TV or the celebrity who messed up or the criminal on the local news, if I can make them the center of attention, then all the room around my own chair remains completely dark.
Everyone's looking the other way.
Right. As long as everyone is looking at the guy on the news,
Yeah.
no one can see my empty wrappers. No one can see my hidden resentments. No one can see the ways I manipulate my family with the silent treatment. Outrage is the camouflage of the proud heart. It allows us to play the role of the righteous judge while actively hiding the evidence of our own crimes.
It is a glaring, massive double standard. And the crucial thing we have to understand is that this double standard isn't just an accidental oversight. It isn't just a blind spot that we playfully bump into because we are a little forgetful. This double standard is the deliberate, blinding work of pride. Pride is not passive. Pride is an active agent constructing these illusions to keep us isolated from God and from each other.
And that leads us to look at what we call the hypocrisy of control. Pride does not just make us arrogant. It fundamentally alters our perception of reality. We become furious that others won't get help for their unmanageability. We yell at the television screen, go to a meeting, get a counselor, fix your life, take some responsibility.
But then we won't do it ourselves.
Exactly. While we are screaming for others to get help, we flatly, stubbornly, violently refuse to reach out for help with our own unmanageability.
We become the ultimate hypocrites, and it is so important to discuss the nature of pride here. In our culture, pride is sometimes viewed as a positive thing. Take pride in your work. Have some civic pride. But in the spiritual context, pride is not just a bad attitude. It is not just thinking a little too highly of yourself or bragging at a dinner party.
No, it's much deeper than that.
Pride is an active, destructive force. It does three very specific, very dangerous things. It undermines our faith, it cuts us off from God, and it prevents us from recognizing our own powerlessness. Let's break those down. Let's start with how pride undermines our faith.
To understand how pride destroys faith, we have to define what faith actually is. Faith requires dependence. Faith is, by definition, trusting in something outside of yourself. It is leaning your weight on a foundation that you did not build.
Right.
Pride is the exact opposite. Pride is the absolute, unyielding insistence on trusting only yourself. Pride says, I am the architect, the builder, and the foundation. The two concepts cannot coexist in the same heart. They're mutually exclusive. If you are operating in pride, insisting that you must manage every outcome, your faith is being systematically starved to death. You cannot trust God to catch you if you refuse to stop trying to fly on your own.
That makes total sense. And the second part, that pride cuts us off from God. We know from the Word of God that God gives grace to the humble, but He opposes the proud. That is a terrifying thought. When we are standing in our self-made fortress of management, demanding that we can control the grocery line, the broken car, the promotion, and our hidden addictions, we have locked the door from the inside. God is a gentleman. He will not force His way into a heart that claims it doesn't need Him.
Exactly. In this prideful mode, we refuse to allow ourselves to reach out for the very help that can save us. Imagine a person drowning in the ocean. The water is rising above their chin. They are swallowing seawater. They are exhausting their muscles. A rescue boat pulls up alongside them, and someone throws them a life preserver.
And what did they do?
The drowning person looks at the life preserver, wades it away, and gasps, "No thanks, I don't need that. I'm just practicing treading water. I'm fine. I've got this."
I can handle it.
Yes, I can handle it.
Let's spend some time on that phrase, I can handle it. Because in our modern Western culture, those four words are celebrated. They are printed on motivational posters. We tell our kids, you can handle anything you put your mind to. But in the context of recovery and in the context of spiritual truth, those four words are a death sentence. They are the ultimate declaration of human pride.
They are the four most dangerous words in the English language for anyone trying to walk a path of true healing.
Why do we say it? Why do we cling to that phrase so fiercely, even when our lives are visibly falling apart? Even when our blood pressure is through the roof and our relationships are in ruins, we still grit our teeth and say, I can handle it.
We say it because we have created a false equation in our minds. We equate admitting our powerlessness with losing the last shred of our human dignity.
Mm.
We feel like if we finally admit that our relationship with food is unmanageable, or our anger is unmanageable, or our anxiety is out of control, we are admitting that we are a total failure as a human being. We think vulnerability equals worthlessness.
We view powerlessness as a surrender to the enemy rather than a surrender to a loving savior. We think that holding onto the steering wheel of that car suspended on the mechanic's lift is somehow preserving our honor. We think, well, at least I look like I'm driving, even though it looks ridiculous to everyone else, and it is destroying the engine from the inside out.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
It is, and I want to talk about the physical reality of that. Think about how exhausting it is to live that way, just the sheer physical and emotional toll of being a hypocrite who has to handle it all the time.
It is a full-time job with absolutely no vacation days.
Yeah.
It requires a massive amount of caloric energy. Think about what your brain is doing.
Yeah.
You're spending 90% of your waking energy just keeping the outward appearance pristine. You are managing your facial expressions. You are managing your schedule. You are constantly scanning the room to make sure no one sees the cracks in your foundation.
You're always on guard.
Constantly. You are standing inside a house that is actively burning down, and you're using all your strengths to prop up the front wall so the neighbors think everything is fine.
And by the end of the day, what is left?
Nothing. You have absolutely nothing left for genuine human connection. You have no energy for joy, for peace, or for the deep work of healing. You collapse into bed, staring at the ceiling, completely and utterly drained by the impossible effort of pretending you were God.
That is exactly it. We are exhausted by the effort of pretending to be God. We were never designed for that job. Our shoulders are not broad enough to carry the weight of managing the universe, or even the tiny universe of our own individual lives. But here is the turning point of our conversation today. There is a way out of this exhausting, terrifying cycle. You do not have to keep revving the engine on the lift. You do not have to keep propping up the burning wall.
There is a door that leads out of the burning house.
And this brings us to the great, beautiful paradox of recovery. The very thing we are so terrified of, the powerlessness we spend all our energy hiding, is actually the key that unlocks the door to our freedom. Which brings us to the reality of the invitation.
This requires a complete rewiring of how we view the world. We have to completely reframe the concept of powerlessness. As we discussed, everything in our culture screams that admitting weakness is a defeat. Never let them see you sweat. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Be the master of your fate. But in the spiritual realm, in the reality of how God operates, facing our inability to manage our lives is not a defeat. It is the starting line of victory.
It is profoundly countercultural, and it is so beautiful when you finally grasp it. The truth is, by facing our powerlessness and honestly admitting our weaknesses, we aren't just giving up. We are issuing a direct, formal invitation for God to step in and change our lives.
Absolutely.
I love the image of God standing at the door knocking. He is there. The help is there. But our pride is like a person leaning against the inside of the door with all their weight, feet planted, muscles straining, holding it shut because we are terrified of who is on the other side. The moment we collapse from exhaustion, the moment we slide down the door and whisper, "I can't do this anymore," we stop leaning against the door.
And the door swings open. When we stop holding it shut with our frantic attempts at control, we finally allow the Word of God to enter our lives and do its healing work inside us.
It's the only way.
The Word of God is described as living and active, sharper than a two-edged sword. It has the power to cut away the rot and heal the wounds. But it requires a softened, surrendered heart to take root. As long as the soil of our heart is paved over with the hard, impenetrable concrete of "I can handle it," the seeds of grace simply bounce off and wash away.
So let's make this incredibly practical. Let's land the plane right where we started. We've talked about the big concepts. We've talked about the dramatic moments of surrender. But let's bring it back to the daily grind. What does surrender actually look like, mechanically, physically, in that slow grocery store line behind the cashier in training? How do I stop being God in aisle 4?
It is highly practical, and it involves a real-time physical and spiritual shift. Let's paint the picture. You are standing there. The flashing light goes on. The manager is nowhere to be found. Your blood pressure is rising. Your foot is tapping. The sigh is building in your chest.
Okay, I'm there.
Surrender begins with awareness. It is actively noticing your own physical reaction. And if the moment your brain says, I am trying to control the universe again, then you take a deep, intentional breath. This isn't just New Age advice. Taking a deep breath actively engages the parasympathetic nervous system. It forces your body to step out of the fight or flight response.
It breaks the physical circuit of anxiety.
Easy.
And then you look down at your hand. You realize you are gripping the plastic handle of the shopping cart so hard your knuckles have turned white. And you make a conscious physical choice to release that white knuckle grip. You open your hands. You let your shoulders drop away from your ears.
Yes. The physical posture of surrender often precedes the spiritual posture. And then right there in the middle of aisle 4, with the fluorescent lights buzzing, the terrible music playing on the overhead speakers, and the register beeping, you whisper a prayer of surrender.
Out loud.
It doesn't have to be loud. People don't have to look at you. It doesn't have to be deeply theological or use big religious words. It just has to be brutally honest. You say, God, I cannot control this line. I cannot magically speed up time. I surrender my schedule to you right now in this moment. Please forgive my ridiculous pride. Give me supernatural patience for this cashier who's just a human being trying to learn a new job. Fill this tiny frustrating moment with your peace.
That is profound. That is what it looks like to actively invite God into the mundane. You take a petty, annoying moment that the enemy wants to use to build resentment and ruin your evening, and you turn it into a private altar of grace. And you apply that exact same mechanism to the bigger things. You do the same thing sitting on the side of the highway with the broken car, smelling the antifreeze. You do the same thing sitting by the phone waiting for the medical results.
You open your hands.
Yes, you open your hands and say, God, I am totally powerless over this engine. I am totally powerless over the cells in my body in this blood test. But you are not powerless. I cannot handle it, but I trust that you can.
Because here is the ultimate promise we are banking our lives on. God's strength is made perfect in our weakness. That is not just a nice saying we put on a greeting card. It is the mechanical reality of the spiritual life. It means that our moments of total inability, when the car is broken, when the promotion is lost, when the diet has failed for the 100th time, those moments are the exact, precise coordinates where God is most ready, willing, and able to work.
The exact coordinates. I love that.
If we are completely full of our own strength, if our cup is overflowing with, I can handle it, there is absolutely no room for His strength. But when we are emptied out by our powerlessness, we become the perfect, empty vessels for His grace to fill.
It is the great exchange. We trade our exhausting, frantic illusion of control for the deep, grounding reality of His care. We trade our exhausting hypocrisy for the freedom of honesty. We stop throwing stones at the people on the news to hide our own shame, and we start letting God heal the deep wounds in our own hearts.
And the really beautiful, encouraging thing about this process is how it builds over time. The more we practice this surrender in the small things, the grocery lines, the traffic jams, the dropped spaghetti sauce, the more equipped our nervous system and our spirit become to handle the massive things.
It's like muscle memory.
Exactly. When the real tragedy strikes, when the phone call comes in the middle of the night that changes everything, we don't have to scramble to figure out how to survive. We already know the pathway of surrender. We have already trained our spiritual muscles to open our hands rather than clench our fists.
That is the road of recovery. It is a daily, sometimes hourly choice to lay down our pride, accept our profound need, and invite God into the mess. And as we wrap up our conversation today, I want to leave you with a challenging reflection based on everything we've talked about. I want you to carry this question with you into the rest of your week.
It's a good one.
The next time you find your blood pressure spiking over a minor inconvenience, whether it's a slow driver, a long line, or a delayed email, pause and ask yourself, what illusion of control is God inviting you to surrender right now, in this exact moment?
We want to genuinely thank you for spending this time with us at the Crosstalk Cafe. It is an honor to walk this road with you. But we don't just talk about these things in theory. We actively live them out in community. And we want to invite you warmly and genuinely to come and be a part of that community at Peters Creek Baptist Church in South Park, Pennsylvania. We walk this road together, shoulder to shoulder, and there's a place for you here.
Let me share our weekly Friday schedule with you so you know exactly what to expect when you walk through the doors. At 6:30 p.m., we gather for our large group worship. And please take note of the special note. On Friday, May 8th, during large group, there will be a men's step study completion ceremony. Please join us to celebrate these brothers who have done some incredibly hard, courageous work.
Following the large group, from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m., we transition into our gender-specific small groups. This is where the real, honest, face-to-face conversations happen. It is a safe environment to drop the illusion of control and share what's really going on. Then from 8:30 to 9 p.m., we gather back together for the Crosstalk Cafe, just like we've been doing here today, for fellowship, coffee, and connection.
We also want to mention dinner. Sharing a meal is such a vital part of community. Dinner is served from 5:15 to 6 p.m., but please note this happens on the final Friday of each month only.
And speaking of dinner, we have a great event coming up. Celebrate Recovery at Peters Creek Baptist Church has an upcoming Taco Night Fellowship dinner scheduled for Friday, May 29th, 2026. That will be from 5:15 to 6 p.m. in the social hall.
I am looking forward to this one. The menu for taco night includes seasoned ground beef and chicken tacos, offering both soft and hard shells. We will also have cilantro rice, seasoned black beans, and chips with salsa. The toppings bar will include lettuce, tomato, shredded cheese, salsa, and sour cream.
The cost for the dinner is kept very affordable, so everyone can join. Adults are $5, children 5 and under are free, and there is a $25 family maximum. It is a wonderful, relaxed time to break bread together before the Friday evening schedule begins.
Now, if you are listening to this and you are not local to the South Park area, we still desperately want you to find this kind of supportive community. You do not have to do this alone. Please find a Celebrate Recovery near you by heading to the internet and typing in crlocator.com. Just enter your zip code and it will show you the closest groups.
And if you have any questions about anything we discussed today, or if you just need to reach out to someone who understands, please do. You can email Craig Amstone at craig.amstone@gmail.com, or you can contact the church office directly at info@pcbc.church.
Thank you for being with us on this journey. Remember, you don't have to hold it all together. See you next time.